Lights, action. What's up, people? This class is all about portrait photography, not guitars. So yeah, definitely not guitars. I believe a portrait can be taken by anyone, but does the portrait actually portray the mood, feelings, and emotions you're going for? So I'm Ebuka Modi, a fashion and portrait photographer based in Nigeria. I've been a portrait photographer for about 8 years now, and I've enjoyed the journey shooting various people, various faces, unique features, individuals, locations. It's just been a beautiful journey really for me. And my works have been published on Vogue Italia, Rebel Magazine, Flannel Magazine, blogs like Short Kids, Bella Niger, and well, the list is going to be endless. I've also created a class on Skillshare called Professional Photography on a Budget, which focuses on the techniques and tools you can use in your photography to stand out no matter what gear you're using. The advice and knowledge I'm going to share with you in this class are things that I wish I knew when I started photography, and it makes me so excited to be able to share this with you. This class is both for beginner and intermediate photographers looking to elevate their portrait photography. By using the appropriate lighting, backdrops, and postures, you will learn how to capture the essence of a person. We will be going through basic camera settings that can improve your photography, what it takes to find good locations for shoots, picking postures that relay the mood or emotion well, lighting and how it affects the pictures, candid portraits, getting to know your subjects, and editing. So as you can see, it's a course filled with lots of stuff that you can learn from. Although this class will primarily be looking at unique and creative portrait techniques, we'll discuss some features of self-portraiture and use these methods in that context as well. By the end of this class, you would have created some remarkable portraits. Join me in the next lesson where I'll cover how to take this class and what your class projects will be. In portrait photography, planning is a crucial stage. When you step out to shoot, it helps you stay focused on your goals. I decided to make the class project for this class a walkabout, exploration of our surroundings, and planning, because it might as well be the most crucial phase in portrait photography. I enjoy how preparation enables one to set objectives, tasks, and to-dos that keeps the shoot orderly, allow for creative freedom, and enable one to concentrate on taking pictures without being distracted by other activities that result from a lack of organization. It begins with taking a stroll around your neighborhood or researching potential locations, choosing a subject and considering how well that subject might further convey the mood you want to portray, being aware of your camera's capabilities and lenses, obtaining props, and setting up your lighting. To properly plan, we need a pen and a notepad in addition to a camera, either a phone or a DSLR. Now that we have planned, let's learn or relearn some basic camera stuff. In order to get mastery of your technique and artistic expressions in portrait photography, you must practice a lot. It's time to spend money on a nice camera and lens once you've begun to grasp the complexities of portrait photography. Since numerous cameras today can produce excellent portraits, there is no such thing as an ideal camera for depictions. Knowing how to use them in various lighting and environmental situations is key. I'll talk about ISO, f-stop, exposure, and aperture. ISO is your camera's sensitivity to light as it pertains to film or digital sensors. A low ISO means less sensitivity to light, and a high ISO means more sensitivity to light. You can use ISO to enhance your images and the flow of light into your images. However, it comes with a cost. And what is that cost? The cost is grain. The higher the ISO, the more the grain. The lower the ISO, the lesser the grain. So now we're going to practicalize how ISO affects a particular photo using this camera, the Nikon D60, an entry-level camera. So I'm just going to light this match. Ouch, that hurt. So that's that for ISO. And as you can see from these images, you can see like the differences between all the values and what they give. And if you notice right here, you can notice like the grain intensity is quite much, and that is because our ISO value was being increased. So that's basically it for ISO. And you can use that to navigate different scenarios or situations that you find yourself shooting in, to get your images to have the exact amount of exposure you need, while keeping note that the higher the ISO, the more the grain. The way your photos are created are reliant on three major factors, or the triangle, which is ISO, your shutter speed, and aperture. The f-stop number or setting is what controls the aperture in a camera. So remember when I said ISO gives grain when you go higher? To avoid a scenario like that, you keep your ISO on a steady value, a value that you like, that gives the image enough light, and then you adjust your f-stop value to match that. So adjusting your f-stop value now helps control the amount of light entering the camera. But however, the higher your f-stop value, the lesser the depth of the photo is displayed. So if you're a photographer who likes blurring out your background, I would advise you go low on your f-stop value and use the shutter speed to adjust the flow of light into your photo. Shutter speed controls how fast or slow your shutter closes, affecting the time of your exposure and helping you freeze motion properly. The lower your shutter speed, the darker the scenario. The higher your shutter speed, the brighter the scenario. In the sense that shutter speed is a fraction, and the fraction goes lower when the numbers of the denominator increases, and the fraction goes higher when the number of the denominator reduces. For instance, if you're shooting something at 1/60, it's going to be way brighter than shooting at 1/300. So you can use your shutter speed to adjust the inflow of light if you do not want to tamper with your ISO or your f-stop value. So that way you have your depth, your desired depth, and you have an image that doesn't have grain, and you're adjusting your shutter speed. But note now, the lower the shutter speed, the faster you capture motion, while the higher the shutter speed, the more blur is seen to be observed. Now I'm going to show you how to adjust these settings using your phone. Now I'm using the iPhone 12, and on the iPhone 12 camera and any basic iPhone camera, once you open your camera, you can choose to put your grid lines if you want to perfect your composition, or you can just leave it plain. You can also use the wide angle lens or the normal lens, the telephoto. So on iPhones, to adjust exposure, all you need to do is tap on the subject. You can hold it down so that it locks it in, and then you toggle with the brightness here, as you can see. Great. And now, the more advanced iPhones make it easier for you to adjust different things, like using portrait mode, for instance. Using portrait mode, you can easily adjust your f-stop value and create an image where the background isn't blurred, or an image that has the background really blurred by toggling this. Then you have applications that help you adjust these settings if you can't really find them on your iPhone or your phone. For instance, I use Lightroom Mobile. So Lightroom Mobile now has an application for your camera. So when you open it, you see your values, your ISO value, your shutter speed, and your exposure. You see all of these things here. I hope this helps when it comes to understanding your basic camera functions. Let's move on to finding the right locations. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about locations and exploring the factors that should be considered when looking for one. The location you decide for a portrait session will have a big impact on the outcome. Although it presents numerous difficulties, shooting outside in natural light often gives the greatest results. Planning would include consideration of weather, time of day, and shifting lighting and environmental factors throughout the course of the day. So first of all, we have location, concept, research ideas, scout, plan a day, weather check, inspection, location, and shooting. These factors, if planned accordingly, can lead to a very successful shoot. Now that we have our location, it's time to get ideas for postures and props that complement our mood and location. See you in the next lesson. Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be talking about postures and props. Props are any items that are utilized to enhance and clarify the main subject of a portrait photograph. When taking portrait photos, a prop will make the person stand out. Additionally, it will let the spectator understand who they are. The use of portrait props can give creative photography concepts a fictional edge. Props. Props aid the visual impact of your photographs. Having little elements or things that you can add to a photo to enhance its meaning really helps. With that, we'll move on to lighting and rules to break. See you in the next lesson. Hello. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about a few lighting techniques and what I use in my photos. A reflector, diffuser, LED light, and natural light are the main components of my straightforward lighting setup. Lighting. Lighting is actually a major part of planning as well, because you need to prepare for the conditions you're going to shoot out with. So if you're shooting indoors, you need to know what kind of lighting you need to use. You need to get these things on ground as well. And if you're shooting outdoors, you need to plan properly to know what you would need to diffuse a light, to reflect the light, or to just generally aid the scene that you're preparing for your shoot. The first lighting tool I use is the reflector. The reflector bounces off light from a light source to the subject or object, whatever you want it to bounce light from. I use it on my portraits because I like the fact that I can get rid of shadows, especially when I want to have a source of backlight. The second tool I use is the diffuser. The diffuser reduces or evenly shares light, especially when that light source is harsh. So it evenly shares it out to my subject's like face or the object I'm trying to get it on. So I get rid of harsh lighting with the diffuser. I also use a LED light. You can easily get a LED light for a cheap amount. You can use it as one of your sources of lighting when shooting portraits. And it's really effective because it highlights your model or subject or even yourself. And you can use it in place of a softbox and whatever expensive setup there is out there. I use my LED light and then my diffuser to diffuse the harsh light from the LED light onto myself when I'm shooting indoor photographs or even some particular outdoor photographs that I want to highlight like a part of their skin. So I just like point the LED light at that and put the diffuser in between, and then you have this soft, beautiful light hitting the face, and you also have natural light. If it's outdoor, you also have natural light like coming from this side. So that mix has gotten me like every photo I want to like shoot. It has helped me achieve every type of mood I want to portray because I'm not restricted in any way. Now, who's going to be in the spotlight? Let's talk about that in our next video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the subject as well as candid photos. The most crucial element in photography is the subject. A great portrait photography session depends on you getting along with your subject. Prior to the photo shoot, spend some time getting to know your subject and, if possible, arrange to meet up in person. It is advisable to get to know one another and explain to the subject your photographic style and the precise objectives of the shoot. Subject. Getting to know the subject. How can you get to know your subject? Well, first of all, if you're taking pictures of a model, you can get to know your subject by probably having tea with your subject, bringing up conversations that help you understand the person even more, laying out your idea with your subject to see if your subject is comfortable with portraying the emotions you're trying to portray and how well your subject can portray those emotions. Self-portraits, on the other hand, help you explore more about yourself. So the more you take pictures of yourself, the better you're more accustomed to being in front of the camera. So for self-portraiture, you just need more practice and more pictures, and the more comfortable you get in front of the camera, the better the outcome is. Not to feel left out, if you're going to be shooting self-portraits, the most important thing is about being comfortable. You need to try out the postures you've noted and see how well you connect with the mood before shooting. Hi, now that you have beautiful portraits to work with, it's time to edit. In this lesson, we're going to be using Adobe Lightroom to edit our photo. And don't worry, if you don't have any photos yet, I will plug in a few of my photos that you can use to practice. Editing has to be my favorite step in photography because I get to portray moods and what is on my mind through color grading. I'll be showing you the tools and processes I use on my photos. Let's go. This is a photo of Tope that I really love, and I chose it to be our point of demonstration. So the first thing is, in Lightroom, you import your photos and you click on that photo, the imported photo, and then this pops up, which is your edit panel. In the edit panel, I go step by step when I'm editing. because I like to toggle stuff and see what works and what doesn't. So the first thing we're going to toggle is the exposure. So we're just going to, depending on what our mode wants to be or what we intend our mode to be. I want this to be a dark kind of photo, so I'm just going to reduce the exposure a little bit. And then our contrast, I want it to be flat, not too contrasted, so that I can work with the blacks. So I'm just going to reduce the contrast a little bit. And then my highlights, I want my highlights to pop. But you can see what it does when you toggle it. Your highlights are reduced here, your highlights are increased here. I reduced my shadows a little bit to bring back the contrast that I flattened out, but using shadows only. And then my whites, I'm just going to check if I want white. Having white, I like what it does to the sky behind, so I'm going to increase my whites a little bit. I really love what it does. Then my blacks, because I already did that with the shadow, I'm just going to keep my blacks a little bit. -9 is perfect. Then we have the point curve. On the point curve, you just need to know two basic things on the point curve. If you have too many whites or whites that are overexposed or blown out, you can crush them by going to the top side and doing that. You can see what it does to the photo. And if you have blacks that you want to crush as well, you can do that. But I don't crush my blacks anymore. I used to. There was this whole phase in photography where people liked to crush blacks. So I've reduced the blacks and my whites, and I think I'm okay with that. The next step is the color. You can choose to increase your temperature or reduce it. Normally, this is what I use whenever I want to correct what my white balance was initially. So if I shot in an overly warm environment and I needed to reduce the warmth, I would just move it a little bit towards the blue side. And if I wanted to increase the warmth, I would just move it a little bit towards the yellow side. But I think this is perfect. We shot well. Then vibrance. Tint is basically to change the tint to a purple tint or a green tint. Green doesn't look that bad though. But I don't want it to be green, so I'm just going to maybe -3. Then we're just going to increase the vibrance and then reduce the saturation. That's my style of photography. But you can use your colors to your advantage if you like saturated photos. So I'm just going to reduce the saturation a little bit with my vibrance increase. And then we have the color mixer, which is one of the most important tools as well in photography, or rather in Lightroom. I use this tool a lot because I normally like to get rid of my yellows. So for example, I have yellow selected here. All I'm just going to do is drag this to desaturate my yellows. And then I toggle luminance sometimes to see how it looks, if my yellows are desaturated or, if my yellows are illuminated or reduced. So I think I like it when +100 is fine. I'm just going to increase this a little bit. Oh, you know what? I think for this particular photo, I'm just going to leave my yellows there. Okay. Just increase this. Then I will manipulate my greens. I'm just going to change the hue is basically the shade. You can see it's looking a little bit yellowish here, and then it's getting a little bit greenish here. So I'm just going to make it green and then desaturate it a little bit to give it that feeling. You can see the feeling, it's just beautiful. And then I'm just going to increase my luminance as well. The blues of the sky, I'm just going to reduce the luminance because I want it to pop, and then increase saturation a little bit here. I will do the same with this and that. Perfect. That's basically what I use to edit. Let me see if there's anything here I can. Okay, perfect. To increase the saturation of oranges. Yeah, that's basically it. And then if there's a color that you can't define in the options given, you can just click this tool here and then select that color, and then it does the job of selecting what particular color that is, and then you can just increase your saturation or whatever. The next thing we have is color grading. In color grading, you have midtones, shadows, and highlights. Midtones, you can choose to, normally whenever I use this, I keep my midtones at yellow and then slightly adjusted. The same thing with my shadows, I keep it at blue or green, and then I move around and see what works basically for my photo. And I think green doesn't look that bad. At the same time, blue doesn't look that bad, but I think green is perfect. A little bit of green and yellow. Yeah. The same thing with your highlights. You can choose to just move it around. You don't need to use this tool every time because sometimes I don't. It's not necessary. But yeah, the highlights here look really good. Okay, so this is before and after this little adjustments we did with our color grading. Okay, and I think I like what I did. It's looking good. Then you can choose to toggle the blending mode as well. It just helps you, and I think this is good at 13. You can also choose to toggle balance, and I think it's good at 0. We now have the effects panel where you have texture, clarity, dehaze, vignette, and grain. So texture is if you want the texture going to show like, but yeah, I barely use texture except I'm being specific about using it. And then we have the vignette. I use the vignettes most times because it gives my photos this feel, basically. So I'm just going to use the vignette and then feather it down to 100 so that it smoothly goes out or is distributed. Then we have green. You can choose to use green. You can choose to, but I wouldn't use green on this photo. You have details where you can sharpen your photo and you can reduce the noise and color noise reduction as well. Then you have your optics where your lens correction is done. And you can just tick these 2 boxes to correct your lens. Okay. So you can see the difference when I tick and untick the 2 boxes. See this, see this, see that. Okay. So I think I'm just going to untick the lens correction because it gets rid of my vignette and I want my vignette. Geometry, you can just, if the photo feels distorted vertically or horizontally, you can just do this to fix it slightly and then you crop it after, but we're not using that. The next step is the crop. In the crop, I normally do this thing because it makes you appreciate a photo more because you're seeing it from a different perspective. I flip it horizontally. And it changes everything, really. Like when you flip it horizontally, you're seeing a different light or a different view of what you did, and you just appreciate the photo, or you go back to what you were using. So I do that often when I'm editing my photos. And then you can choose to crop it however you want, but I think I like the full frame as it is. And then the next step is the healing. You have the clone and the heal. And in this step, you can choose to touch up your model's face. But I barely use this tool. I barely use this tool because I like the texture of the skin. I like to portray imperfections as perfections. That is, it's one thing about my photography. I don't really remove pimples or acne or anything. I celebrate the person and I try to show people through my pictures that like the person is perfect regardless. So I don't use these tools. Well, in this one, you can choose to select your subject and select the sky, and it's impressive. So if we select our sky, let's see what it selects. There we go. So we have our sky selected, and then we can just reduce the exposure a little bit more, increase the highlights of our sky. Oh my God, this thing looks so dramatic. Jeez. What do you think? Well, we can increase the whites because I want the sky thing to show behind, and it's beautiful. And then blacks, let's just decrease the blacks a little bit. And this is perfect. And then you can also create a brush tool as well. and you can just brush over where you want to get something done. I normally do this over my model's faces and clothes to enhance the highlights on that particular part. And then we have this. Okay. So that's about it for Lightroom. Really, this is the before and this is the after. It's beautiful. You can make any photo look very cinematic with these tools. Just take your time and toggle stuff, see what you like, see what you don't like, be experimental about it, and you'll get there. I hope you enjoyed this process and editing your photos. Go ahead and post your photos in the projects tab so that I can check it out and give you positive feedback. I can't wait to see the marvelous images you guys have edited. You did it. We've covered a ton of stuff in this course, and I've shown you how I go about creating distinctive portrait photographs. I hope this has been informative and beneficial to you as a photographer. Although this was very useful, practice is the best instrument for honing your skills as a portrait photographer. Regularly going out to shoot and experimenting with different techniques and approaches to photographic situations will greatly improve your foundation as a photographer. I'm very excited to see your projects, so make sure you upload them as soon as you're done editing. Feel free to join me on social media with the handle ebuka_modi. I look forward to connecting with you. Well done, and see you soon.